All right, we are going to dive right in. I wanted to take a moment as part of our agenda to get you all acclimated to the Giants units, which includes like where to find them and all of that. So I am going to drop a link in the chat here. And you can, I'm going to also share my screen. I have a multiple monitor setup at home here. So if I'm not looking directly at you, it's because I'm looking at the screen that I'm sharing, which is one of my other ones. So um, if you head to Giants, you're going to see a website like this. And I just put the Giants link in the chat. So you've got that and you'll want to bookmark it because you're ideally going to be going there often. And oh, before I do this, I just wanted to say really quickly, you all have your cameras off, and that is totally fine. This is a very low impact workout here. So I know that at some point tonight, some of you are probably going to be eating dinner throughout this. Like, we got you. Don't worry. Like, this is totally fine. We have done this 1,000,001 times, and our norms are to be super relaxed and super full of grace. So you're all good. If you head to the Giants website, or if you just like want to look at it now from what's on my screen here, um, the website looks like what you see right now. And as you can see, we've got Giants available for kindergarten, first and second grade. We've got a third grade, a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way up to eighth. So it covers a lot of different grade levels. We do not go higher than eighth grade right now. I would love to see us develop a high school US course and maybe a high school world course, but the demand wasn't as there as it is for things like the elementary and in some cases the middle school. So you can see all of the different grade levels are there. And to navigate it, you just kind of hover your mouse over the grade level that you want. Unfortunately, that part's not a click. What you have to generally do is click on the sub menu that pops up. So I'm going to share with you the pacing view first. This is the view of the year for eighth grade. The unit lengths did not change, and I don't anticipate that they're going to. But you can see we've got a very short, about 2 weeks, unit 0, and I'll go over what's in all of these units in a little bit here. We've got a slightly longer unit 1, and then unit 2 on is where we really get into the content from the 8th grade standards. Unit 1 hits the foundation standards, and Unit 0 takes care of what a lot of US history teachers that I've met throughout the years like to do, which is review of 5th grade, which is kind of necessary. We haven't had kids in US history in a US history setting for 3 years at this point. So when they come back, they don't remember a lot from it because a lot of things have happened in their lives between those. But I do work with a lot of teachers, and I have some that will spend the entire first marking period. And in some cases, I even have a couple that like to spend the whole first semester reviewing 5th grade. And I am one of many people who helped update the content expectations over the past few years. And I can tell you that was not our intent. The standards that we have for 8th grade are meant to be taught over the course of a whole year. So we've developed a Unit 0, which is a just the facts, ma'am, sort of mini unit that covers some of that stuff. We get a little more review in Unit 1, and then Unit 2, we hit the ground running with the first presidents and on. So this pacing view is nice because you can sort of see in a good year, in a perfect year, this is the gold standard, what a year of Giants should look like. Now, I do a lot of new teacher mentoring as part of my role at the ISD as well. And one of the things I like to tell them is the gold standard is to get through all of your standards. The first few times you teach a curriculum, we always like to look at the acceptable variation. So it takes 3 to 5 years to get really good at a curriculum. So we will talk throughout this about places where you can shorten or condense units. And people get behind for a lot of reasons. One of the big ones is, of course, the months of January, February, and March. Those of you who have been teaching for a while remember 2017 when we had the polar vortex and the bomb cyclone, and we had 27 snow days. Actually, I think that was the year we were rolling out 8th grade Giants last time. So hopefully we don't get a repeat of that. But So people tend to get behind at some point in the year. So we will always in these units talk about places where you can cut if you need to. We won't tonight because these are fairly short units. So anyway, this pacing view shows you that rough map of how long each unit should be. And then each unit has its own individual landing page. So here's the landing page for unit 0. We have a unit overview. We've got 3 lesson overviews. The unit overview is your 10,000 foot view. So when your administrator says, hey, what standards are you teaching with these units? The unit overview is a great place to go because you can see the compelling question that the unit is centered around, which in this case, when is revolution justified? You can see the content expectations that we are addressing throughout the course of this unit. You can see the C3 framework with the new standards. The big new thing is inquiry-based instruction. And the C3 framework brings that in. So these are some of the C3 indicators that we utilize. And then you get a bird's eye view of what each lesson is about. So each supporting question is the focus of one of our lessons. And if you noticed 3 lessons and you're like, hey, great, where's the rest of it? Our recommendation is generally a good rule of thumb is to look at how long a unit is and look at the number of lessons and divide by 3. So it's kind of hard with this first one, but if you start looking, the units start to stabilize at about 6 weeks. So look at the number of weeks and divide it by the number of lessons. That's about how long you'll spend on each lesson. So in a 6-week unit with 3 lessons, you'll spend about 2 weeks on each lesson, if that makes sense. So just kind of file that away, and I'll remind you of that too as we go through all throughout this year. As you drill down a little bit further into these units, you will notice you've got lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. So you're going to visit this when you first start a unit, your unit overview, but you're going to live in the lessons. We give you the compelling question again. We give you the supporting question that the lesson is centered around. Again, this lesson is just hitting this foundation standard. We give you some learning targets, C3 indicators again, and then a 3-column format basically tells you, these are the steps for the lesson. This is the gist of what you should be doing with students. We take the opposite approach of the Oakland units where they very much spell out like step 1, greet your students as they walk in the door. Step 2, use a seating chart and have students find where their new seats are. Step 3, go over your classroom rules and expect. We don't do it that way. We basically think that you guys know what you're doing, and we like to give you the gist of what the activities could, in fact, be. But as Laura mentioned, like their school is using parts of it and not others, and that is also part of the intent of these units. You can teach them verbatim, or you can use them to plug holes, or you can mine them for resources. So all of that is good. So we give you the gist of it, and then everything we need to teach the unit is available in this other column, the resource column. So I'm going to get into my open book in just a minute, but that's sort of how the units are structured. At the end of each lesson, we have an idea for formative and summative assessment. And these are things that you can do when you've closed that 2 weeks of learning, or that, in unit 0's case, that day and a half of learning to kind of see where they're at. And then the brand new thing now is at the end of each unit, we have some assessments that we've developed. And these assessments are pilots. So they're a good way to get started, but they are not complete. They haven't been tested in this format, by very many people. So it's a starting point, and I will go over those a little bit more in just a little bit. So before I move into the next part of the agenda, which is to give you a little bit of look into Open Book and how it plays with this, does anyone have any questions on our bird's eye overview of the units? I'm going to pause and I'm going to take 3 deep breaths, and you can either throw it in the chat or unmute and ask. There we go. I learned during the pandemic, wait time in a Zoom, 3 deep breaths is about perfect. And if no one does it by then, by then they've found the mute button and everything else. So another component of this that is optional is you will see in some cases we utilize My Open Book, the Michigan Open Book Project. And the Michigan Open Book Project, I forgot to download the 8th grade book prior to this, but I downloaded the 5th grade book, and it looks very similar. It's all set up the same way.